The Panthers put out a tank-worthy roster on Saturday in Toronto, but it goes to show they care way more about the culture.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Monday, April 13th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the nation's #1 sports podcasting network, and it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News, and you follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. So, Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show to discuss everything in the world of the Florida Panthers. Tonight, the Florida Panthers will be in action at home against the New York Rangers for one of their two last home games of the season, two of the last games of the season as they finish off at Emirates Bank Arena. We're going to discuss the Rangers game in segment 3. We are also going to discuss in segment 2 how the Panthers AHL affiliate in the Charlotte Checkers could make a run to the Calder Cup Final again, maybe even this time winning it with all the guys being called up to the lineup this late into the season and getting valuable experience. But we're going to start today's show with discussing the Panthers' 6-2 win over the Toronto Maple Leafs on Hockey Night in Canada in Toronto. And, you know, when you look at a usual Panthers-Leafs game in the 2020s, you're thinking, oh, this is a very important game for playoff positioning. When the NHL schedule makers put this game on with 3 games left and the season winding down, a lot of us were thinking that it was going to be a chance for positioning in the Atlantic Division and possibly a first-round matchup, maybe if these guys were to be in the 2 or 3 hole in the Atlantic Division. But a lot of things have gone wrong for both teams, with the injuries for the Florida Panthers and also with the Toronto Maple Leafs losing Mitch Marner and not having a lot of draft capital to fill their team. This is a position that they find themselves in, and both having an opportunity to improve their draft position because the Florida Panthers put out a tank-worthy roster on Saturday night with another call-up. Now it's the 7th call-up for the Panthers and making their NHL debut in Wilmer Skoog, who played at Boston University, who moved to North America really in his teens and also got established here and then was signed with the Florida Panthers. We've seen him at development camps. We've seen him for preseasons for the Florida Panthers, and now in his 3rd season in Charlotte, he finally got the call to be with the Florida Panthers and making his debut there. But the Panthers just flat out outworked a Toronto Maple Leafs team on the other side because they shut down multiple guys for the season as well. It was announced in the morning of Dakota Joshua is being shut down. Brandon Carlo, Anthony Stolars were 3 guys who were announced to be shut down. And look what happens when you look at the top end talent for the Toronto Maple Leafs. There, you still have valuable guys who, when you look at it, if you put the top end talent for what the Toronto Maple Leafs dress versus what the Florida Panthers dress, you would think that the Leafs would have the advantage there, but this wasn't even close. The Panthers just flat out outworked this group. And you look at just the centers here. Luosterainen is the top line center for the Florida Panthers. Cole Schwindt, who's been up and down from the AHL to the NHL until just last year, he's in the lineup. Tomas Nosek, who's been injured even going back to last season when the Florida Panthers won the Stanley Cup. He didn't go into the lineup last year until November in the Global Series in Finland. And then Luke Cunnin, who is sometimes a winger, sometimes a center. That group for the Panthers should not have won that hockey game on Saturday night. But really, it comes down to heart, and that's what this group has. And when you realize that this Panthers team only has they have only 6 roster spots open for next year and 17 one-way contracts signed until next season. there's a lot of a sense of urgency for these guys fighting for jobs for next season, whether it's here or elsewhere. And the fact that the Panthers scored 23 seconds in on that beautiful give and go from Luosterainen to Mackey, and then off the end boards, and then for the Toronto Maple Leafs, lack of coverage in their D zone, and then Joseph Wall not hugging the post, not being able to locate the puck. The Panthers were really firing on all cylinders, and then later on the Cole Reinhardt rush chance, Craig Berube, although their season is done, they're still trying to find a way to win games because there's still questions on whether Craig Berube is going to be back with the Toronto Maple Leafs after firing their general manager in Brad Treliving. So he's under evaluation. So he's trying to win games as well. Does not get the challenge, does not win the challenge, and then the Panthers go on the power play after that. So the Panthers were off to the races quickly. And the fact that other guys are getting opportunities. We spoke with Marek Alsher getting his first ever point on Thomas Nosek's first goal of the season. Great pinch, got it to Thomas Nosek in the high slot, and then he beats Joseph Wall there. And for the Panthers here, that's just everything you want to see as far as play. And yes, there is the elephant in the room when it comes to the draft positioning and the tank. And again, you can't get players to tank. You just can't in the NHL. And when you don't try, that's when you are more likely to get hurt. So that's a risk you're willing to take there for when you're putting a lineup here. But again, there's that sense of urgency from everybody who's fighting for a job here. But you love to see what happens here in a game like this. And Danil Tarasov, he's going to get the next 3 starts for the Florida Panthers. They're also shutting down Sergei Bobrovsky. Again, the law of averages is likely going to work out for the Panthers here when it comes to draft positioning and getting a good pick, because it's really hard for me to believe that they're going to go on a 3-game winning streak to end the year as well. But for the Leafs, William Nylander was really the only one getting in on the scoring opportunities. There was a double save that Danil Tarasov had where it was like a deflection, and then he robbed him with the glove late in the game there for the Leafs. But he also got the only 2 goals for the Toronto Maple Leafs on the night, where it was a shot missed by John Tavares. Adriger was not able to sweep it out, and then Nylander able to shoot from the high slot, and then another one where Toronto was working around. It was a shot block, and then with Luke Cunnin trying to find Vinny Hinostroza, a nice little strip from William Nylander and a nice drive unassisted to make it 3-2. And you know what? At the time, it's like, okay, you knew that they were going to have some type of pushback, but for the Leafs, that was really their only real push there. And then Danil Tarasov making multiple stops, breakaways on guys like Max Domi, who's been in the NHL for a while, John Tavares, who's hurt the Panthers in the past. I mean, it's about to be 10 years since that infamous Trocheck was tripped game, and then John Tavares scores twice late in the third period and then later in overtime for the New York Islanders at the time that had the Panthers in their long drought of not winning a first-round series. But the John Tavares hasn't really done anything against the Florida Panthers since that moment. The Panthers have actually been able to he hasn't been able to haunt them really since that moment, as much of a heartbreak as that was. And the fact that the Panthers, even though the Leafs pulled the goaltender with 4 minutes left in a 2-goal deficit there, you love to see that the Panthers are still clogging things up in the neutral zone, and then you're able to easily score and now put the game way out of reach and not give and really give the Scotiabank Library a reason to leave early, although that place is already quiet to begin with there. But I love the fact that this is a group that's continuing to just keep pushing. And Mackie Samoskevich, let's also mention him. 5 goals in the last 8 games. He's coming in hot. And yes, there's a lot of negativity around Mackie Samoskevich because he's doing this in a part of the season that is over for the Panthers, and it's not in the middle of a playoff push. But this is like kind of a little bit of a confidence boost for him as he's getting more comfortable in his game, and also getting more of those minutes and getting the power play time there for the Panthers. So I see nothing but positives here for the Panthers. And I got one reply saying, "Oh, you're helping the Leafs so much getting into the top 5." Again, just because the Leafs are in the top 5 doesn't mean they'll stay there. There's an opportunity for the lottery slots 6 to 15 to jump them. And I saw a tweet saying the worst thing that could happen would be that the Florida Panthers could win the lottery, not going right into the number 1 spot in a position to draft Gavin McKenna. Leafs go out of the top 5, and then Boston gets that first round pick. Just absolute nightmare scenario. And honestly, a lot of us would be laughing if that is the case. But those other teams behind Toronto have that opportunity to jump them as well. The safe spot for the Toronto Maple Leafs is number 3. To fully guarantee that means no one can possibly jump them. But they're not going to be in that position once the season ends. So there's going to be a lot of anxious Toronto Maple Leafs fans from now until the draft lottery on May 5th, while the Florida Panthers still have that opportunity to still guarantee their spot for their first round pick. So you love to see a kind of performance like this. And again, outworking the opposition. And that's something that Jeff Chikrin, who it was great to see Jeff Chikrin back on the broadcast for the Florida Panthers there on Saturday night. He hasn't done a game for the Panthers in a while, maybe like 2 years. And it was great to just see him. I mean, he's local to the area, living in Boca Raton. So when Ed Jovanovski can't be at the desk there at the Script Sports Studios, Jeff Chikrin fills in, and great to see there for him being back. But coming up in segment number 2, we're going to discuss how the Panthers call-ups recently could put them in prime position for the Checkers to go back to the Calder Cup Final and maybe, possibly, even win it. We'll discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Rougiet. And the NHL playoffs are here, where every shift matters, every moment is intense, and the pressure is at its highest. And just like performance matters on the ice, it matters off the ice too. That's where Rougiet comes in. Rougiet offers treatment designed to help you get ready and stay ready for when it matters. Their top option, Rougiet Ready, combines clinically proven ingredients in a simple mint that dissolves under your tongue. It works fast, often in 15 minutes. It can last up to 36 hours. They also offer Go Long, designed to help both performance and control. It's all about confidence and feeling like yourself again. Head to Rougiet.com/LockedOnNHL and get 15% off of your ED treatment. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNHL for 15% off. Rougiet, performance medicine for men. Also, today's episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. And if you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keep track of subscriptions, spending, and bills that can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rougiet comes in, help you take control of your finances all in one place. It tracks all of your subscriptions in one spot and can help cancel the ones you don't need with just a few taps. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going, and you could set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps and finds unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join rocketmoney.com/locked-on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. And I'd like to thank you guys once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And make sure to check out our Everydayer Club for an ad-free episodes and access to a group chat with me and other listeners of the show. Tap the link in the show notes to learn more. So, this is a great opportunity, once again, like I said, for a lot of guys who are getting the call-ups for the Panthers. I mean, just naming a few guys who are currently on the Panthers roster here. Wilmer Skoog, like I mentioned, who made his NHL debut, and also a guy who could get in on the forecheck and also has provided a net front presence for the Panthers, and even guys who have a little bit of NHL experience who aren't necessarily a part of the Panthers' future. Nolan Foote is one of those guys I think about, and then defenseman Mike Benning, Marek Alscher. Ludwig Janssen and even an experienced defenseman in Tobias Bjornfot, who's been with that group, and the chemistry between the guys coming from Charlotte and up to the NHL club, it makes a lot of sense of why this group works so well together, because they're so used to what they provide in Charlotte, and the fact that the system is the same from what's down there to up here. It's a nice little smooth transition. And I want to discuss a little bit of what Paul Maurice said after the game on Saturday night in Toronto, of what he said after the game. And he said, quote, "I'm happy for the guys. We've had a tough trip and they get a reasonably pleasant flight home." And he close quote. And he also said, quote, "It's good for the soul. This is hockey night in Canada. We talked about it before the game," close quote. And being aware of the circumstance, being aware of the spotlight that this team has on them, playing in the quote unquote mecca of hockey there in Toronto, and the fact that there's like an impression there for the people up there watching the game. Yeah, the Toronto Maple Leafs are more concerned about we're more concerned about it, at least the fans, of increasing their draft lottery position. But the fact that they saw, wow, these guys may not necessarily be on the roster and they're fighting for every puck there, they're probably there's another part of them that is probably thinking that why can't there be any life from this group? And again, the Panthers showed that they have life and a great culture, while the Toronto Maple Leafs showed that theirs is likely in trouble. And it's going to take a long time, even after this year, even with a lot of cap room, but not a lot of draft capital, because even if they do keep their first round pick in 2026, a lot of the conditions from previous trades do change the conditions there, because it moves a lot of things back when it comes to guarantees and lack of protections there. But the Charlotte Checkers and the guys who have come up for the Panthers, the fact that they came up and got some NHL games under their belt could really push them to go back to the Calder Cup Final. And I'm looking at guys who were with the Checkers last year who have an opportunity to get another playoff run in them. Marek Alsher was with the group last year. Jack Devine came later into the year. Sandis Vilmanis was there as well. Mike Benning, who this is his third year with the organization now, is getting some NHL time, and now he's going to go back more than likely. Sandis Vilmanis is not with the group right now, but he had a 4-goal game on Sunday against the Hershey Bears, and he's going to really, of all the AHL players from the Panthers, he's going to get probably the best chance to make the roster come next year, whether it's in a fourth line role, and he could even fill in the middle six if necessary. And we saw him fill that part in during the season, and honestly, he really looked like he fit in. And even veterans like Tobias Bjornfot, who's been with the group for a while with the Checkers, and he could be part of that run as well. And then Wilmer Skoog, experience matters and tenure matters. So a lot of guys who have been playing a lot of time with the Charlotte Checkers and under Jordy Kinnear, that is going to be valuable for an opportunity to go back and also possibly win it. And the Florida Panthers organization really in a good spot. Jack Devine, I mean, he still needs a little bit of seasoning, and the circumstance of when he was called up, the Panthers wanted to call up Jack Stanicka, but he was injured at the time. So Jack Devine was the guy that they called up. And, Jacob Winans and I remember on an episode, we talk about how he fast-tracked himself to the NHL to at least make a debut, but it was always going to be a short-term deal for him. And the fact that he was buried on that fourth line, never really got a promotion up, and the fact that it's in his first real pro season, the evaluation was always going to be incomplete. Wilmer Skoog, maybe he could have made his debut earlier, but they did discuss in the media availability that he's been hurt most of the year. But the Panthers also got some great news on an injury from last week, because we believed that former second-round pick in Grayson Sachin, he was going to be out for the season when he got hurt earlier in the year, but he was able to make his return last year. Him, Jack Devine, and Sandis Vilmanis are playing on the same line in Charlotte. So the fact that he's back, the fact that he, even if he makes this the rest of this regular season and the postseason healthy, he's gonna spend his time getting his craft better instead of rehabbing from his injury. And the fact that is, just like Wilmer Skoog, Grayson Sachin is a guy who really does get to the net front and can really win you a good amount of board battles there for the Checkers, for that group. And that right now the Charlotte Checkers are slated for the 3-6 matchup, which the first two seeds in the Atlantic Division are getting buys, while there's the 3-6 and the 4-5 matchup. Their opponent isn't set yet, but they have an opportunity to possibly eliminate a possible first round opponent. Where right now they're slated to play the Springfield Thunderbirds, who actually play head to head against the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, who is right now 7th in the Atlantic, but still has a chance to at least make the postseason. Lehigh and Springfield do play on Wednesday, while the Checkers do play Lehigh on Saturday and Sunday. So even if Lehigh does win on Wednesday, the Charlotte Checkers have a chance to eliminate them over the weekend, and they'll lock in that head-to-head matchup there for the first round. And then after that, it gets reseeded from the highest seed goes against the number 2 seed, and then the lowest seed goes against the number 1 seed. But if the Checkers do win, they will guarantee that 2-3 matchup because they are the highest seed right there. So it looks like if they advance, they will play the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins there. But it's very encouraging to see that these guys are getting a whole bunch of time in the NHL, and then it's kind of like, I'm going to compare this to something in baseball where you're in the on deck circle, you have that little donut on your bat, which is a little heavier, and the purpose of that is to help you swing the bat a little faster when there's a fastball coming. And then when you remove the donut, you're able to at least get better, not necessarily better contact, but at least react a lot quickly because you did that warming up. I feel like it's the same thing for the guys being called up to the Checkers here. The fact that they got to play some better competition, when they go back, their confidence is going to be high. And the fact that they got a win at this level, that is going to be helpful for their chances of when they do get on the ice and play a head-to-head matchup in the Calder Cup playoffs. And by the way, the Savannah Ghost Pirates, congratulations to them. They clinched their spot in the Kelly Cup playoffs as well. So the only Panthers prospect right now who is in the Savannah Ghost Pirates organization is Evan Naus. Karuga Simnyuk was there for a little while, but now he's back with the Charlotte Checkers. So best of luck to both organizations for what's hopefully a long playoff run. But coming up in segment number 3, the Panthers are back in action tonight against the New York Rangers. We're going to discuss who's going to be in the lineup, who's on the ice for morning skate, and the scenario in which the Panthers could guarantee their top 10 lottery pick. We're going to discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here. While every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. And you can bet $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The app makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, the extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. Just make every playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. And if you want to bet on the Miami Heat and their chances of advancing in the play-in, you can do that so on FanDuel, as they will start their play-in tournament on Wednesday night in Charlotte, where they will face the Hornets and then face the loser of the Orlando Magic versus Philadelphia 76ers game. Make sure to check that all out on FanDuel. So make sure to go to FanDuel to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Third and final segment here on this Monday, April 13th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And Panthers Rangers tonight, where both teams are not going to the playoffs. The New York Rangers are looking one step closer to locking in what their draft lottery odds are. They are currently battling the Calgary Flames for third or fourth. It looks like that the New York Rangers are going to be one of those in one of those tiers for them. Which right now they're actually tied with 75 points. But the Calgary Flames do have more regulation wins than the New York Rangers, but the Rangers actually have more regulation overtime wins. So it's going to be interesting if the New York Rangers do in fact win their next two games in regulation, and the Calgary Flames find a way to win their next two past overtime, or even in a shootout, because that would mess things a little bit with the tiebreaker, which the Florida Panthers are actually in that position with the St. Louis Blues, because both teams have the same amount of regulation wins. They have the same amount of regulation overtime wins. So, and also the Blues have a game in hand. So if the St. Louis Blues win that game in hand, the Panthers actually drop a spot because the third tiebreaker would be total wins, which the Florida Panthers do have that over the St. Louis Blues. So that would actually drop them, as the Florida Panthers are right now in the 7th spot there. But it's another of a game of let the kids play. Although the Florida Panthers are back at home, which Matthew Tkachuk did return home from their road trip to be with his wife for the birth of his first child, he's not on the ice. There was no Matthew Tkachuk. There was no Carter Verhaeghe. There was no Sam Bennett, and those guys looked healthy enough to play on Saturday night in Toronto. But again, the intention for the Florida Panthers there was to improve their draft position and get guys an opportunity. That was what it was there. But good news is Anton Lundell was back on the ice and looks to be in a good position, but he was working with Alexander Barkov on the side, so it does not look like he will return. But this is still great news regardless when it comes to his personal offseason program for him. So that is some great news, knowing that that's one less thing to worry about when it comes to training camp for the Florida Panthers, and that at least centers 1 through 3 are gonna at least start off training camp for the Panthers. But we said let the kids play. It's likely going to be the same lineup from Saturday night against the Toronto Maple Leafs going into tonight against the New York Rangers. Daniil Tarasov, like I mentioned, is going to get the next 2 starts again tonight against the New York Rangers, which is fan appreciation night at Emirates Bank Arena, and then Wednesday night in Game 82 against the Detroit Red Wings. So, and Wednesday night's game against Detroit doesn't mean anything for the Wings, as that game has actually been taken off of the nationally televised slot on ESPN. So very, very, and it's valid if they want to put actual playoff implication type of matchups there on ESPN. But again, the New York Rangers, it's not for a lack of health for them, for all the inexperienced guys that they are putting in, like forwards Noah Lava, Adam Sikora, Yaroslav Shamlar, defenseman Drew Fortesk there, and then a guy who made his NHL debut recently in Dylan Garland. And they haven't won a lot at the AHL level neither, as the Hartford Wolfpack are last in the Atlantic Division. So it hasn't been great for the New York Rangers organization in both the NHL and the AHL. And it doesn't help that their general manager and Chris Drury has basically isolated a lot of players and really been very cutthroat in trying to purge the roster. In the example of Barclay Goodrow just a few years ago, the Jacob Trouba situation, saying, if you don't waive your no trade clause to this, we're going to put you on waivers and someone can claim you there. And they're still possibly going to trade Vincent Trocheck in the summer. They didn't necessarily get the offer that they wanted at the trade deadline, but looks like that his days with the New York Rangers are numbered there. But again, just like the top end talent for the Toronto Maple Leafs on Saturday night, the top end talent for the New York Rangers coming into this game, they haven't hit the ice for morning skate, but assuming that what Daily Faceoff has up, this is a group that should be better than the Florida Panthers when you have Mika Zibanejad there, Alexei Lafreniere, Gabe Perreault, like I mentioned, Vincent Trocheck, JT Miller. And I'm not sure that who will get the start in goal for the Rangers. But if Garland is the starter for the Rangers, you know what the assignment is there for them. And Money Puck has not updated so we don't know who the starter is right now. And but the Rangers haven't faltered completely since the trade deadline. Right now they're 9-1 since that the deadline. And the Rangers have owned the Panthers this season. The Winter Classic, where Mika Zibanejad had his 5-point performance, and the Panthers were only able to get 1 goal on the board thanks to Sam Reinhart's power play goal, and then unfortunately did get a goal that came off the board in that same Winter Classic there on a review. But unfortunately, the Panthers, the greatest memories in that one are more about the event more than it is the game. Unfortunately, they did not come out with anything, and honestly, that was the game where really the Panthers season really started to fall apart when Seth Jones had that injury on the collarbone off of blocking a shot. And then the most recent matchup, the Panthers really had the ice tilted in their direction. Matthew Tkachuk had a goal taken off the board as well on an offside, which was the right call. And the Mackie Samoskevich had that garbage time goal where broken stick, Igor Shesterkin misses it, and it goes into the back of the net there. But that was, if you remember going back to that the episode that I did after that weekend, the main conversation then was talking about how Matthew Tkachuk has looked his absolute best since returning to the Panthers there, and the fact that it's a great lasting impression for this type of season for Matthew Tkachuk, even if he doesn't play he's not going to play tonight because he wasn't on the ice. More than likely, he's not going to play on Wednesday. That's something to feel really good about. And the fact that, once again, the kids are going to have the opportunity. So here's a scenario for the Florida Panthers to fully guarantee their top 10 lottery pick, because if they finish 8th or better, there's no circumstance that would have any teams jump in front of them to take away their first round pick. So a regulation loss plus San Jose and Winnipeg, which both teams are in action tonight, if each of them get a point, the Panthers will be 8th or better in the lottery. Or if the Panthers lose in overtime and both Winnipeg and San Jose each get 2 points, same thing. The Panthers will lock it in because they will surpass the maximum amount of points for the standings there. So if it comes to a situation where it is a tie when it comes to points, I'm gonna look up quickly the regulation wins for San Jose and Winnipeg, which the Panthers have 30, the Sharks have 25, and the Winnipeg Jets have 28. So a tie in points would be the worst case scenario for the Panthers and would have to wait for the lottery there if they do happen to be. But those two Western Conference teams have 3 games left. The Panthers have 2. So there's still that opportunity, even if the Florida Panthers do win tonight, that those 2, which San Jose is still mathematically alive in the postseason for as they will be in Nashville tonight. It's very slim, but they still have a chance there. And Winnipeg even still has a chance. So they're not putting out a lineup that is going to be trying to improve a draft position there. So may the odds be ever in your favor. That's the way I see it. And let's have fun the rest of the season. And you like to see it's great to see a win, although there will be some fans out there that no matter what I say on this podcast, they won't be convinced that the Panthers gained anything from this. But what the Panthers really gain is still a standard. That's really what the volumes that spoke about Saturday night's win against the Toronto Maple Leafs. But that's going to do it for today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Coming up on tomorrow's show, we are going to discuss whether the Panthers do actually clinch a top 10 lottery slot, depending on what happens tonight, and also break down this game between the Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers. Thank you, as always, for listening. And in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast so you'll be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone, and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.